Hi guys, it's Horsey Stuff, and today I am back with another segment of Horse Trainer Reacts to Misty. We are working our way through this movie, getting to the end of it, and in the last segment, the kids had just managed to purchase the Phantom and her foal Misty. So I'm excited to see how they approach handling this baby, what kind of goes on with Phantom, because they've made a pretty big deal about how these older ponies can be difficult to gentle, and all of that jazz, because I'm assuming in the last segment of this movie, they're going to go ahead and touch on all that. So I'm really excited. It was great to see that all their hard work paid off in the last segment, and now we get to see the fun part of what they do with these ponies they just bought. If you guys could go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos, that would help me out a ton. And let's go ahead and jump on in. Alright, so the Phantom looks extremely upset being locked in this pen. I'm not surprised. She's a wild horse. She's been wild her whole life. Although she is only 3, I mean, that's everything she's known for the 3 years of her life still. And she's separated from her herd, her friends, everything familiar. The only thing she has left is the baby. And again, that goes back to, I think it's really hard to take a wild horse and just rip them away from everything they know. It's really hard on them. They're used to having all these freedoms. And I'm not saying we don't offer a lot of comforts in domestic life, but it is just not the same. They're used to so much freedom, and they're not given that. They're locked in a small area, generally by themselves. I mean, here she has her baby, but she doesn't have any other horses, so she's still kind of by herself with that baby. It's very traumatic, and I do feel very bad for horses that have to undergo this. Actually, I feel bad for even horses that grew up in domestic life, that they don't get the freedom, and I work very hard to give my horses as much freedom as possible for that reason.
She's just not used to civilization yet. She just needs time.
I don't know that she needs time. I mean, she does need time, obviously, but I don't think it's just that she's not used to civilization. I think she does not like civilization. And over time, she will begin to accept it better. It will just become, you know, life. This is how her life is now. But I think a lot of that is done through the process of shutting them down. They learn to be helpless. Well, I'm just trapped here. I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to throw a fit. I'm not going to panic about it. This is just my life. I'm just stuck here in this small area, unhappy and lonely. And they get used to it. But I think it's a really dangerous concept to equate getting used to something to accepting it and being happy about it, because the two aren't the same. You can get used to a lot of horrible things if you're subjected to them long enough. She does seem to be quieting down around them, which is nice. They've made a lot of progress on her being friendly to them, so that is good. At least she's not equally panicked about the kids as she is about being abandoned in this corral. So that will definitely help improve her life. If you are going to domesticate a wild horse, or, you know, have any horse by itself, quite honestly, you need to provide adequate socialization. So having the kids be kind of companions to her and having her look forward to seeing them is a good first step. Obviously, I think they need to get her with other horses in general and just allow her friends so she's not lonely, and that will ease this transition as much as possible. But I'm not convinced they're going to do that, and I think there's a lot of reasons why people wouldn't do that, especially with the foal, but also just in terms of getting her handled and used to people. It can be a little easier to do that by themselves when they don't have other horses to interact with or hide behind and take comfort in. Not that I'm saying that's how you want to do it, it's just, it is easier. She's eating food out of their hands, so that's exciting. That's probably how they've created a better relationship with her, is just getting her used to the idea that they give her treats. Again, I don't see anything wrong with giving horses treats in order to gain a little bit of, you know, enjoyment in that interaction, especially these horses that are just so petrified they don't want anything to do with you. A treat can be a good way to bridge that and help them understand you're not there to hurt them and that they should try to interact with you and see kind of what you're all about. Wow, lots of progress. She's standing still, letting him pet her. Letting him run a brush on her. That doesn't look like a wild pony anymore at all. She seems like a domestic pony that's kind of had all this done forever. Or just a horse that, has had a lot of training done on it to where it's so far from being a feral horse that, again, it basically acts like a domesticated horse. But I'm very impressed with their progress. That's very cool that, they can now brush her and interact with her, and she's not trying to run away from them constantly. So that means they're well on their way to gentling her, getting her halter broke. Probably going to start her under saddle relatively quickly as well, since of course the kids are going to want to ride. And she is 3, so they have that opportunity with her to get her started under saddle pretty quickly. Versus getting a baby, obviously you're going to have to wait for it to grow up a lot. I personally wouldn't start a horse at 3 years old. I don't intend to back my future baby whenever I get one until it is 4, and then actually start riding it at 5. Obviously by back I mean just sit on it, get it used to getting on and off. But I don't intend to actually start riding it until 5. But it's very common practice to back horses at 3, even as young as 2 sometimes. So definitely in the realm of possibilities there, and wouldn't be considered abnormal or, cruel in any way to do that. I just think that they need a little more time to develop, so I personally wouldn't do that. He is very impressed with the progress that they have made already. He was one of the ones that said you can't tame a wild pony that's been out in the wild for a while. He was like, you have to get the foals because the older ones are just not worth it. They're too difficult, etc., etc. So I think he's extremely impressed with how quickly they've been able to make this progress, and she's acting very comfortable around them, which is obviously the first step in domesticating any kind of horse, and honestly training any kind of horse. It's the same thing we do with the babies, right? Get them really used to us being around them before we start actually training them in any tasks, like to do anything. We first want them comfortable around us. So, he's doing a great job. He's approaching it well.
She ain't gentled. You got it. But you ain't gentled it yet.
He is right. He is right. She's gotten a lot better, but it's not the same as being gentled. Being able to interact with her, brush her, do things she likes to her, are very different than being able to ask her to do something and have her oblige. And especially if you're going to try to force a horse into something, these wild horses are going to be a little harder to force into things than a, baby that you've been forcing something on from the very beginning. And it's the big reason why domesticated horses are easier to work with than Mustangs for a lot of people. If your tactic is to just force them into things and tell them they have absolutely no other option except do what you ask, they've been doing that since they're probably first born, a lot of them. And that makes it pretty easy to shut them down and say, well, you just got to do it. Close your eyes and do it. These wild horses haven't had that, and they're a little older. They have a little bit more ideas. They think on their own a little bit more than a baby would. And so you're going to have to fight through that a little bit more, or just work with them in the first place. But what a foreign concept that would be, right? Yeah, okay. That tactic of just trying to hold on to the end of the rope and, drag her forward, again, it works on the babies because they're so little. It does not work on a full-grown horse. So he really should have had somebody else to help him if that was going to be his tactic, to at least keep her going forward and keep her from pulling back like that. Or, again, you could break that down to much simpler steps so you don't get to the point where she's trying to tear away and rip the line out of your hand. But it's certainly something I have seen happen to plenty of people. It's happened to me before. When I was younger, I've had horses rip ropes out of my hand, give me rope burn. I've tripped trying to hold on to them as the rope gets, ripped out. He's not hurt. He'll be just fine. He just fell down. But Certainly, it's not very fun, and it's embarrassing, and your hands can get a little cut up, and it teaches the horse to get away even more. So then you have a problem, a habit that you've kind of let the horse get away with, and you have to work through later. So I don't think he set himself up for success. Hopefully he learns from that experience and he sets himself up for better success the next time. He is not going to be strong enough to outmuscle his pony, so he's going to have to work smarter, not harder. And that's where the older ones are trickier. Oh, look at the little baby. The little baby's like, oh, how are you? What are you doing on the ground here? I don't know why the grandfather is running over like the world is ending. I mean, Phantom didn't do anything that dramatic to him. It's not like she kicked him or bit him or attacked him. Like, she just pulled the rope out of his hand and he fell backwards because he was pulling to try to get her to come, and when the rope ripped out, he had nothing pulling against him to keep him upright, so he fell over. Really a not bad way of falling down, honestly. Like, you're not gonna get seriously injured doing that, especially a kid. Like, yeah, if we're talking about somebody that's like 80, they're pretty fragile, they might fall, bump their head, whatnot, could actually get injured, but we're talking about a little boy. How many times in a day does he fall doing dumb stuff? Like, come on, we all know kids. Even in safe environments, they're gonna fall down. So hitting the dirt is in and of itself is not going to kill him. They're being very dramatic here.
I'm gonna get a barn buster to break that fence.
No, Grandpa.
You think I want you children hurt by a wild pony?
You didn't hurt me, Grandpa. I just fell down, honest.
Exactly. I don't know why he's all like, I'm gonna hire somebody to do this. I told you it was a bad idea in the first place. You're gonna get hurt, blah, blah, blah. He's totally overreacting. I mean, it's not like the Phantom even did anything to him. He literally just fell down because he didn't set himself up for success. So instead of hiring out this issue to make it easier on the boy, I would be telling him work smarter, not harder, and let him figure it out for himself. Because honestly, this is not that dangerous a situation. He's smart enough to avoid getting in like real big trouble and like holding onto that rope as she drags him around the ground. So let him work it out, let him figure it out, teach him how to think for himself and problem solve, and come up with better solutions to train horses instead of just out-muscling them, which he's not going to be able to do on a horse this size.
But Grandpa, you said it was wrong to break a pony. Yeah, you said breaking a pony was the fast way and gentling was the sure way.
Alright, so now the boy is like, wait a second, I don't want you to hire a horse breaker because gentling a pony is a sure way, breaking is the fast, bad way. What are they doing? Literally, what are they doing? When your tactic of training is to just subject a horse to pressure and then keep that pressure until they are done panicking and submit to it, you are breaking them. That's the definition of breaking a horse. So I fail to see the difference. Perhaps they did a good job with gentling her in the beginning when they got her used to being touched and brushed and whatnot. But this is no longer gentling. All of this training is literally just breaking. It's just teaching her to shut down and oblige. So in terms of her progression, training, and well-being, there's absolutely zero advantage to doing it yourself like this versus sending it out to Horsebreaker. Again, I still think, like, he's got to figure it out for himself. Let this be a lesson for him. Let him learn from it. Now, before he ruins 1,000 other horses trying to just outmuscle them when there are better ways. But his reasoning, the boy's reasoning for not hiring a breaker is irrelevant.
Stop pestering me.
That foal's pretty cute. Real talk, it's a really obnoxious habit to have them like run up to you and kind of like bump you or maybe nip you as you're going to leave because they want more attention. So I would shut that down real fast. It's just kind of a spoiled habit ponies can get into, or babies or any horse really could get into. Definitely something I see a lot with the babies. When I'm interacting with them, they're great. When I turn my back to leave, a lot of them will kind of be like, well, what if we play with you? What if we do something with you so that you don't leave and ignore us? Like I said, I shut that down real fast. I don't think that's a cute habit at all, and can get really obnoxious and honestly dangerous at some point. Obviously, I'm working with like full-sized horses that are going to go on to sport careers, not ponies, which are smaller and a little less dangerous, but still. I mean, anytime, I don't care, I've said this many times on this channel, even if it's a mini, it needs to act with respect, because what if you have a small child around that mini? Like, it should be respectful and safe. Look at that! They've done a good job now. I mean, I don't know if she's perfectly halter broke per se, but she is now leading around without complaint like a well-trained horse. So good for them. They've obviously put some effort into that. The foal looks a little bit less halter broke. He's kind of doing his own thing within the confines of the lead rope. So nothing crazy, but is, you know, kind of walking ahead, walking behind, walking out to the side. So not following as nicely as I would love to see the foal following, but all good progress. And for the age and the time they've probably spent with this foal, I think they've done a good job. That's about the progress I would expect to see on that age. I mean, it's not even weaned yet, and it's already walking pretty respectfully. Your grandfather's happy that they are making progress.
I'm busy with an apple. Why you place his skirts around her? Grandpa says she won't mind it too much after she gets used to it.
Alright, so they are going to start working on getting the Phantom saddled and then eventually work towards riding her. I think, again, that's what I expected them to do. They're going to use a piece of cloth and wrap it around her belly and then tie it so that she can get used to feeling a girth of sorts. Excellent option. I typically do this with a lunge line. I kind of work with the horse on the line, and then I will take the end of the lunge line and wrap it around their belly and then, you know, snug it up a little bit. I don't tie it. I don't, like, yank it with all my strength, but just I get them used to the idea of the rope going around their belly, and then I get used to the idea of kind of tightening that rope gently around their belly. And once they're really good with that, then I'll introduce something like a surcingle where I can actually like securely fasten it and, you know, start moving them around with it. But a piece of cloth is a great option. It's something, you know, lightweight, easy to put on and off so that you can really repeat that process and get them really comfortable with it. It's soft. It doesn't require a lot of equipment that might scare them or could, you know, fall off in the process and spook them, which is just not going to be productive. So similar to what I do. I just, you know, I already have the lunge line because with these horses that I am starting under saddle, they're always in an environment where, you know, I'm working them on the line pretty regularly. So it's convenient for me. If I didn't have that anyway, I would probably do something else like this. And she doesn't seem to really mind that at all. I don't know that I would put the cloth on and just have her run around loose like that. I would want to do this in more of a structured way, just because if she were to completely panic, I wouldn't want to just set her off on her own to have that panic on her own. I would want to be involved in that, help her settle, help her relax, just help her get used to the idea of having that around her belly, instead of setting her up for failure like this, where, you know, she's just gonna run herself silly, like, oh my god, get it off, get it off, get it off, and have no idea how to cope with it. If you've done good groundwork, you can help a horse work themselves down, and that would be what I would be doing in a situation like this, where perhaps I got them really comfortable with it coming on and off, and I secured it and they were comfortable. I walked them a step, they were comfortable. You know, took all those steps to make sure they're comfortable along the way. And then maybe when I sent them out on the line and they picked up a trot, they're like, oh my god, it's gonna eat me. Because I've certainly had horses do that. Then I can keep them on that line and work them down until they realize, you know what, actually, it's not gonna eat me. And then you take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on, until they really just get used to that idea. This system where they've just put it on and set her loose, she might really never become comfortable with it. She might just panic until she's so exhausted she stands there like, oh my god, the world's ending, I'm just gonna freeze. And then they take it off, and next time she even sees it, she's like, oh my god, that's the thing that I couldn't get off no matter what I did. So that isn't gonna set her up for success in the long run. It's why I probably wouldn't take that tactic. But it is something a lot of people do. A lot of people would do this in a round pen. They might just throw a saddle on and then set the horse loose, let it buck it out. Again, it's a breaking technique. So they are still doing what I would consider breaking a horse, not gentling a horse or training a horse ethically, which is what I'm going to take gentling a horse to mean, because I think that's a pretty nondescript term. But, you know, she probably is pretty smart and gets along pretty well, so this will probably work out for them. It's typically your more sensitive, spooky, difficult ones that this ends in a train wreck with. And she's running around a lot. This doesn't seem like she's upset about the girth at all to me, although I think that is what they're trying to portray. It actually seems just like classic separation anxiety. Like they've maybe taken her buddy away or taken her baby away, maybe put it just over the fence so they can't see it in the shot, and have created that like wanting to circle and run. Because the way she's hovering by that far fence and kind of circling a little figure eight, it really looks like there's something across the fence line that she wants to get to, not that she's panicked about what they've put on her. But she's come down to a walk. She's come over to them again. So I think she's definitely getting used to it. And I like how they were able to get down from that fence right next to her. I think that's a really important thing to do around horses, because it gets them really used to just being above them and then coming down from above, kind of dropping down on them. Obviously, they didn't get on her from it, but it does help sort of prepare them for the idea that you might get up on a mounting block in the future, lean over top of them in the future, come down off a fence and sit on them in the future. So all of that good stuff that, you know, you want your horse to be used to before you get on them, this is just an easy way of practicing it that you can do on kind of a daily basis with your ones that are even really young and don't know anything. Just climb over the fence a few times, get them used to the idea that you go up and over things and come down next to them, and it's just no big deal. All right, we're gonna go ahead and end this segment here. Definitely have made a lot of progress on training the Phantom and Misty too. I mean, Misty was already pretty easy to get along with from the very beginning. He was able to go right up in the water and, you know, grab her, and kind of has been able to interact with Misty and, you know, touch her, whatnot from the very beginning. So not as much work put into her, but she basically leads now. The Phantom, they've gotten leading, they've put the first girth on. I'm suspecting in the next segment, the last segment of this movie, because we are almost at the end, they will get her saddled and actually ride her, but we'll see. I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, because I'm really excited to see all that. Just, again, I'm loving how much actual horse training is in this movie. I hope you guys enjoyed and have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.